Welcome to Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum jointly sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties and Capital Community Television. My name is Sally Holloman, and I am serving as moderator for the League of Women Voters. The League is a nonpartisan political organization that works to educate its members and the public about governmental issues. In this program, we are hosting the candidates for Oregon House District 25. They are Paul Holman, Democrat, and Kim Thatcher, Republican. We will begin with a 3-minute opening statements in which the candidates may introduce themselves and discuss their priorities. The order was determined by a previous drawing. Paul Holman, please begin with your introduction and top priorities.
Thank you. So my name is Paul Holman. I'm a small business owner in the city of Newburgh. I own Yamhill Frames, or a production framing company. I'm also a firefighter and paramedic for the city. My reasons for running is just like a lot of you out there, I just became kind of disheartened with the political discourse and figured that, you know, the best way to solve a problem is to try to take care of it yourself. So the opportunity presented itself, and I decided to run for this House race. My top priorities, in no order, because they're all very interrelated, are first of all the economy. We need to get our state working again. The second priority would be our education system. Not just K through 12, but educating for life. We have a lot of unemployed out there who need some job retraining. The third big issue is making sure our communities are safe and livable. People love to live in this state. This is a great state to live in, and you know, I'm lucky to live in the city of Newburgh. It's a very interesting district because we also have the city of Kaiser, and then in the middle we have St. Paul, and within those three areas you have very unique situations. 2 metro areas. St. Paul's a farming community, and it's just a great place to live. So we need to make sure that first, people are able to work, people are able to be educated themselves and then educate their children, and third, enjoy this wonderful area in which we live. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Kim Thatcher, please begin with your introduction and top priorities.
Hi, I'm Kim Thatcher. I moved to the Kaiser area with my family a little over 20 years ago. And right when we moved here, we bought our first house, and I had just had a new baby, and then my husband lost his job. That is when I started, I really heavily considered starting my own business, and that is something I wanted to do since I was a little kid, and that was kind of the catalyst. That's what started. So about 20 years later, I have a couple of small businesses in the transportation and services and supply industry. And in 2004, a lot of people were encouraging me to run because, like me, they're facing many, many frustrations with dealing with agencies, kind of sort of almost a bureaucratic disdain. Not necessarily that the regulations need to change, but perhaps the interpretation or the people carrying out the regulations needed to have an attitude adjustment as to how to treat small businesses, which, you know, are the backbone of our economy here in Oregon. We are the main employers. And 8 years later, seeing some changes. There's some changes here and there that are positive, and I would really like to continue to work with Oregon to make Oregon a friendlier place to do business. And I've made this a top priority in my legislative service. Some of the other things I've been working on, since I've worked on many different committees while I have served in the legislature, one of the top priorities I've had is being a strong advocate for the taxpayer. I had set up the Oregon Transparency website, which is starting to show people, the taxpayers, where the money is coming into the state and how it is being spent. Also, as a member of the Budget Committee and also the co-chair of the Audits Committee, it's given me a really good perspective on the fact that we really need to prioritize our very limited tax dollars. I really try to listen to the people in my district, and there are varying interests out there, of course, but many people in my district were concerned about their privacy, and this would be specifically gun owners and concealed handgun licensees. So I was able to work very hard over the years and was able to pass a bill to protect their privacy. Another area I'm also working on right now is, and have been for quite some time, is integrity in our elections process. And what I mean by that is, in Oregon, there are nearly 11,000 voters who are not qualified to vote in a federal election because they have not shown this minimal amount of ID that is required by the federal Help America Vote Act. But they can vote in Oregon state and local elections. I think we should just have one standard and require the first time, people signing up to vote for the first time show this ID that's required by the federal government to vote in federal elections, and adopt that standard for Oregon state and local elections. And those are things I would like to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now alternate in asking questions of the candidates. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer, and I will repeat the question before each candidate replies. The candidates were not given the questions in advance. The first question: what specific items in the state budget would you cut or increase? And we'll begin with Kim Thatcher.
Very interesting question. There are so many. The main categories that are important to Oregonians are education, taking care of the most vulnerable citizens, and public safety. Now, within those categories, there are some things that I think that we could really look at reducing, and that needs to be prioritized. Money should be going to educating kids first and foremost in the education system. Below that, maybe we should reconsider or try to maybe cut down on some of the expenses that are related to things not educating kids. When it comes to public safety, maybe we should focus on the police and incarceration, the corrections system, rather than focusing on advertising and things like that perhaps are not really helping the people, the taxpayers. And when it comes to medication, we really need to help the most vulnerable. However, we need to prioritize that. We can't be everything for everybody. And as far as specifics, that is where we have to have those very pointed discussions, and everything needs to be on the table. I like to say that legislation is a team sport. You can't just do this by yourself. You have to talk to and work with both sides of the aisle and your colleagues and come up with the best solutions, and also talk to your constituents. Thank you.
Okay. What specific items in the state budget would you cut or increase? And Mr. Holman.
Thank you. So like Kim said, it's very difficult to right now, say, hey, I'm going to cut money from here, but I'm not going to cut money from here. What I will say is, as a taxpayer, as a small business owner myself, I want funds to be spent appropriately. So I think what we need to do, first of all, is make sure that every tax dollar is being spent on programs that are valuable and help citizens in our community. Some of the ways to do that would be through, government oversight, and not the government, putting oversight on us having the oversight over government. We need to make sure that every tax dollar they take in is spent properly. Programs, managers, government agencies driving around in vehicles, going to state conferences and, luxury resorts, stuff like that we can't afford. Potentially, if the economy was better, okay, maybe, but right now, no. All that stuff needs to be cut, and then we can focus on, our healthcare system, our education, how we develop economic opportunities and public safety.
Thank you. What reforms to Oregon's tax system would you support? And please be specific. And we'll begin with Paul Holman.
The specific tax reforms are very difficult at this time. Let me give you a perfect example. I drive an electric car. Before, I had a gas vehicle, and I pay taxes to drive on the roads. Right now, there is no system in place to tax me. I love driving on great roads. So the state needs to come up with a way to reform the vehicle tax system so that someone like me will pay taxes. I want to pay the taxes. I just need the state to help me do that. I know it's kind of weird to say, but we need good roads. As far as modifying the tax system in general, I'm not an economist, but I would love to hear from anyone out there, and I'm open to all ideas.
Thank you. What reforms to Oregon's tax system would you support? Please be specific. Kim Thatcher?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would get rid of the egregious parts of 66 and 67. And at this point, they've almost melded together as, you know, almost the same thing. But what's happening with small businesses, some of which are corporations, they've incorporated, they're having to pay tax on their gross sales, and maybe they've lost money or made this much money, but they're paying taxes on this much. That needs to change, because we are sending a message to everybody out there who may want to be, grow their business or invest in the state from another state that, we really don't want you. We don't want you. And so that's just not the message we need to be sending. So we need to fix that. I would like to see us flatten the tax system a little bit, have more taxpayers, and even it out a little bit. Like I said, legislation is a team sport. I don't know if that would change anytime soon. I would definitely look at that ballot measure. I don't remember the number, but it's the one that repeals the death tax. That is a double taxation in my book, and that needs to change too. And that would help us as a state send the message to people in our state and outside our state that, hey, we're going to be friendly to do business, and you will be able to pass on your family business in an easy way without having to have double taxation when it comes time to an owner passing away, property owner or business owner. There have been discussions, I've been hearing, rumored anyway, about a sales tax. And I will say, if we ever decide to do a sales tax, we will have to make sure we put it in the Constitution and have it replace a tax.
Thank you. Regulations on Oregon's small businesses have been criticized. What specific changes to regulations, if any, do you advocate? Kim Thatcher?
Thank you. There are so many, and I like to sometimes refer to the BOLI, the Bureau of Labor and Industries, as actually BOL, the Bureau of Labor, simply because industries is kind of out of the question. They're the ones that get punished the most, and unevenly, and not necessarily even-handedly. I would like to see some change there, and it may not be the regulations themselves, like I said before. Sometimes it's just the people interpreting the regulations and carrying out the compliance issues and enforcement issues. Now, there are those things, and there's just a number. We have to change the culture. We have to change the culture in the executive branch, and that may or may not involve changing or getting rid of a regulation. It may just require a change of attitude from the people who enforce, have them look for solutions rather than treating a small business as guilty until they prove themselves innocent. Not treating them with disdain, but rather looking for solutions to get to where we want to go. Look for compliance rather than punishment. Those are the things that we need to change. I think it really comes down to an attitude change, and especially from the executive branch.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question. Regulations on Oregon's small businesses have been criticized. What specific changes to regulations, if any, do you advocate? Mr. Holman?
Thank you. Like Kim said, regulations is a big problem for small businesses. I'm discovering, the more I'm in business, it's kind of like regulations become very important. One specific regulation or regime of regulations I'd like to address is the article in the Oregonian about the wine industry. Newburgh, Dundee, that part of this district depends heavily on wine sales. And this is just an example. I'm sure the same thing happens in all industry. But the wine industry right now has prohibition-era regulations that are keeping them from being able to do business. Perfect example, the Oregonian said that wineries and people who buy wine need to pay cash for cases of wine. So, hear me, if I had a winery, here I would be paying out cash to the driver. I mean, that's just, to me, a regulation that needs to be changed. And If you look at other industries, I'm not an expert on all of them, but I'm sure you will find lots of regulations that could be changed and that would help our economy.
Okay, thank you. The cost of prisons is very high in Oregon. What, if any, changes in laws would you advocate to reduce prison costs?
First of all, we want to make sure that people who have done the crime, especially violent crimes, crimes involving vulnerable populations and children, go away for a long time. I'm very tough on crime there. There may be other issues, you know, minor crimes, you know, we want people to pay restitution. We want them to be able to do their time, but there may be measures we can take to reduce the cost, reduce the burden on the prison system, while at the same time reforming the individual so that they can be a productive member of society. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on prison reform here. I'm a, you know, firefighter, paramedic, small business person. So, you know, I'd be really interested to hear from people within that industry and from groups to see, you know, what we can do to keep prison costs down.
Thank you. The cost of prisons is very high in Oregon. What, if any, changes in laws would you advocate to reduce prison costs? Ms. Thatcher?
Thank you. Well, like Paul just said, I'm not an expert on all the ins and outs of the prison system. Yes, we need to have public safety. We need to hold that as a high priority. People want safe neighborhoods. They want their children safe. They don't want murderers being set loose earlier than they need to be. They want sentences to be true and accurate, and not just, you know, some sort of a lip service. Having said that, we as Oregonians have some of the highest prison costs in the nation, and it isn't because we are incarcerating too many people. It is because the cost of our prison system is very high. We need to look at the successes in other states and look and see what can be adopted by our state to cause to make some of those costs go down. That's just, you know, something that we need to keep as a priority, but we can't just keep doing things the way we are doing because it is not sustainable.
Okay, thank you. The next question. Should the state encourage alternate forms of energy, such as wind, solar, or biofuels, and if so, how? Kim Thatcher?
Wow. You asked the question as if it's not happening. I think that we have done a lot as a state to subsidize many of these industries, encourage use of them, encourage consumption of different types of energy, encourage installations. I don't know that that's very successful. I don't think it's helping the costs of these types of energies to go down. Instead, I think it's keeping it very expensive. I'm not sure that we've done a great job in that area simply because we're not letting the market take hold. When the market can develop these energies free of you know, some distortions from subsidies and all that, costs will go down. You'll find all kinds of things that we haven't even thought of. There will be inventions that we haven't even considered at this time, and saying that we need to have this type of energy or that type of energy. Let's just let the market go and let's just see what we get. I think we would end up with a much better system, much more competitive, and have a great system of choices out there.
Thank you. Should the state encourage alternate forms of energy, such as wind, solar, or biofuels, and if so, how? Mr. Holman?
Thank you. That's a very good question, and I think before I answer the question here, we have to go back from way before I was born. A long time ago, we built the dams and the energy infrastructure we have today. At the time, that was alternative power, and because of that, we have some of the cheapest power rates in the country. I think that what you will see is as industry grows, we're going to have a power issue. You already see with Facebook and the other various industries that are moving to this area, they're using lots of power. I feel that it's important that the state encourages alternative forms of energy. You know, solar, wind, biofuels, they're all great in theory, but we need to make sure that we can come up with one that in practice is going to result in lower energy costs. As far as I'll specifically address biofuels, in Newburgh we have SP Newsprint, and they're using railroad ties. They're turning that into basically biofuel. They grind it up and burn that in their boilers. And that's the perfect opportunity or the perfect example of how the state is encouraging the experimentation with alternative fuels.
Thank you. All right, we have our last question. Do you have strong feelings for or against any of this year's ballot measures? If so, which one and what is your reason? And we'll start with Paul Holman.
All right, thank you. So the ballot measures, it seems like every year we have a lot of ballot measures. I think people are going to love this. The ballot measure I'm watching is the one on marijuana. And the reason why I bring that up, and this partially relates to prison costs, it's a product, yes, it's an illegal drug, but a lot of people use it. I personally have never used it, but I do have friends who do. And I think that if we were to regulate that, tax that product, it could become another revenue source for the state. It would also decriminalize a practice that is apparently very common. I don't know about my district, but I would imagine in Portland it's fairly common. And I think that we need to decriminalize that and stop prosecuting people for what's essentially a petty crime.
Thank you. Do you have strong feelings for or against any of this year's ballot measures? If so, which one and what is your reason? Kim Thatcher?
Well, thank you. I'm keeping my eye out on the death tax repeal. There are about 30 other states that have chosen to repeal their death tax, and that is the inheritance tax when somebody passes away. There's a sum of money, a pound of flesh that needs to go to the state. And that's just, like I said before, I believe in my opening statement that that is a form of double taxation, and it really puts a big burden, especially on small and family-owned businesses. And I think that it's just kind of a kick in the teeth to some family businesses when, first of all, they lose a family member, likely, or the main owner of the business, and now they have a chunk of money that they have to pay out, and they may not have the liquidity or the cash on hand to make that payment, and sometimes we lose those businesses. We want to keep family businesses here in Oregon. We do need to repeal the death tax.
Thank you. Now, where are we? Each candidate will now have 1.5 minutes for a closing statement, and we'll begin with Kim Thatcher.
Thank you. You know, the budget has been a continuing challenge the past few sessions. Cost of retirement and benefits and the cost of payroll at the state level and also at the local and city levels. It's just really putting a strain on taxpayers at every level, and we simply cannot sustain the size and scope of government that we have. We do need to prioritize, pull back a little bit, make sure that we're squeezing every penny as much as we can. I've worked hard, one, on setting up the transparency website and improving it over the years, and worked on many initiatives to help small businesses. And also, I think you asked us what kind of legacy maybe we would want to have after we leave, and I would like to be known as being a taxpayer watchdog and having looked out and maybe made some uncomfortable changes and maybe worked against, not against, but with people from the other side and maybe not necessarily with people on my side of the aisle to make these changes that help our future and our kids and keep these programs that Oregonians want. Having safe neighborhoods, educating our kids, and helping the most vulnerable. Those are the things that Oregonians have decided that they want to protect, and those are the things that we can do if we help our economy and keep spending in check.
Thank you. Paul Holman, your final closing statement, please.
Thank you. So all I ask of voters this year is vote. I think it's very important that the voters become educated on the issues and choose a candidate that best meets your needs. If I'm elected, I will focus on our economy, education, and public safety, as well as making sure that we have livable communities. We all love living in this great state. I enjoy camping, hunting, fishing, and just all the great things that we have in this state. But in closing, I just remind everyone, get involved, not just in the state national races, but also your local race. And don't forget to turn that ballot in. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties, I want to thank both of you for your participation today. Thank you to CCTV for providing this opportunity, and to you for watching and participating in your own citizenship. Ballots are mailed on October 19th, and you must mail your ballot back so it is received by county election officials on or before Tuesday, November 6th. Please remember to vote. Your vote counts.